Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Bite Size Science. My name is Ana Sangronis, and I'll be your host today. We are coming to you live. I am currently in Southeast Florida in Miami-Dade County. And Bite Size Science is a webinar series brought to you by Florida Sea Grant, and it takes place on the first Thursday of every month at 12:30 p.m. We will be providing you with the link to look at and register for future topics for the remainder of 2022. All of our webinars this year are following the theme of citizen science. Today, my friend and colleague, Armando Boveda, he is the Sea Grant agent in Sarasota County, will be presenting to you on marine debris. Following Armando's presentation, he will be staying online to answer your questions. So please feel free to put any questions you have into the Q&A or the chat box, which is located at the bottom of your screen. This webinar is being recorded and the link will be put up on the Florida Sea Grant Bite Size Science page, where you can access it later if you would like to revisit and learn about this stuff and share it with your friends and family. Armando, take it away.
Good afternoon, and thanks, Ana, and welcome to our Bite Size Science webinar about marine debris. Just like Ana said, I'm the Sea Grant agent in Sarasota County, so I'm in the Gulf side of Florida, and I've been here since in this position since 2016 and working with marine debris issues for a long time as well. So I'm gonna dip into marine debris. And like Ana said, if you have questions, please type in the chat or Q&A box as well. So that I can skip that, introduce myself. So what is marine debris? You have the definitions right there, but I think easier to think about marine debris like any man-made object that accidentally or not accidentally enters the Great Lakes, in our case of the United States, and eventually finds its way into the ocean. As you can see in this picture, anything can become marine debris at any time if it's, as I said, enter any water body, large water body, and then eventually the ocean. But that's the technical definition of marine debris. It's a major problem, so this is a global issue. You probably have heard about the garbage patches around the globe. And this is a global issue because marine debris can be generated in one location, but because of the oceans, the connectivity of the oceans or the water basins and the currents, this marine debris can move to different locations. So the source of marine debris might not be in place for this marine debris. And as some of you might already know, some marine debris, and we'll go deeper into what kind of items make marine debris or what type of items can be. But marine debris can be from very tiny items, things that float, to things that don't float, and things that will be anything between the water column. So there's no place on our ocean that free of marine debris, and mainly, sadly, but plastic. And I'll talk a little bit more plastic as well. So as you can see in this picture right here, this is some examples of some of the currents, and you can see, if you can see my cursor, these are some of the known garbage patches. And people think about this like floating islands of trash. These are not floating islands of trash. You have some large items, like you can see in these pictures, but you can have very tiny or even microscopic items that make marine debris. And I'll go more into that. But yeah, but there's high concentration of marine debris just because of the ocean currents and the way the planet turns and etc. in the wind. Based on some of the data from a lot of the beach cleanups, especially around, many multiple places around the globe, especially here in the States, due to the organization that collects this data, the Ocean Conservancy, you can see some of the most items collected, the most common items collected are made out of plastic, some of the small items like food wrappers, caps, straws, things like that. But marine debris can become in any size. So I was telling you, it can be something very tiny to something very big, like the relic vessel, like right here you see in this picture, like an abandoned sailing boat, can eventually become part of marine debris. So you can think about, this is just giant, large items to very tiny microscopic, but the most common in all the pickups that people collect this data and track what items they collect. You can see here in this infographic that have a lot of things in common, and that is that most of these things are made out of plastic and things that we actually consume and utilize and either bring to a coastal marine system or can be generated far away but still finds its way into the Great Lakes and oceans as well. So why is marine debris a problem? There's many different situations marine debris become a problem, and it's been categorized in different, I guess, by the impact or what impacted. So in this case, it is a problem for wildlife entanglement. As you can see, these pictures right here, you see the sea turtle, which is a reptile, needs to come to breathe, so cannot, being entangled in a fishing net, it will eventually drown. Difficult mobility, obviously. Some marine mammals, the same issue, they get entangled, especially fishing gear, which you see the word here, ghost fishing or ghost traps. That's what's basically the relic fishing gear that's been lost at sea, and this keeps trapping things. That's called ghost trapping. You see the sharks as well, being a fishing net, but they can be all kind of, it's not just fishing equipment. This can be ropes. There can be other kind of products. Like you see the very common typical picture of the turtle trapping I think it's a six pack ring for cans, things like that. So anything can entrap. And this is not just megafauna, but also can be, minute organisms. You also have habitat damage, which can be very problematic. And this is across all water columns. So you can have direct damage, like in this case, you have rope tying into coral reef. By the way, this is the picture. This is the zoom in of this. It doesn't seem like much, but you have some of these organisms, these colonies, like this coral, that might take decades for them to grow. So in a matter of a second, entanglement or some kind of marine debris can cause tremendous trouble. And so this is all across the ocean. So we have deep sea habitats being impacted by marine debris, and also more shallow environments like seagrasses, coral reef, and things that we are more familiar with. But it's a problem across the ocean. We also have ingestion. That's becoming a problem as well, especially with plastic debris. So you see here in this picture, and I know it's a little bit not pleasant to see, but this is unfortunately a bird, a shorebird that actually perished because of the amount of plastic being ingested, most likely a juvenile. It's grabbing things from the shoreline, and it's a problem. Ingestion sometimes is not an active ingestion, so animal is not looking, searching for, sometimes in accidental. In some cases, in like the cases shorebirds, is being highly documented because a lot of these currents, a lot of nesting sites, they are more in offshore areas, which normally they're very remote, but now also marine debris, because of the currents, that one of the slides I show you is finding its ways across these islands. So a lot of trash, marine debris is being piled up in areas that used to be very remote, and islands that maybe just hold a population of shorebird, nesting shorebirds. So it's becoming a problem. Fish as well, fish, as I said, some might be accidental ingestion. Some of them might be not accidental, actually passive, having active ingestion, particles floating in the water column, confusing them for some prey items. And it's becoming a problem, and we still not understand fully how they can have an impact in humans, especially if these are, organisms that are part of the food chain, or, that gets eventually ingested by humans. Another problem the marine debris cause is the transport or facilitation of transport of invasive species. So this is species of organisms that are not native to an area. They can become problematic in terms ecologically speaking. So they might out-compete a native species. They can create damage ecological to the system, and eventually establish in an area and basically out-compete some of the natives. So just to give an example, for example, an old derelict vessel can be grounded in one shoreline, and some organism attached to it, like you have here, some organisms that attach to structures, and that structure basically leaves that area because it floats away or is carried away by current. So all these organisms then are transported into those basically marine debris. So that can become a problem. And as you can see, this is a example of how, like in one area, and they find about 60 species of different invasive species coming from some other place. Another big impact of marine debris is economic loss. There's been many studies conducted into terms of how much trash actually people can tolerate before they actually leave. And, economic loss too, if you're familiar with the Florida parks or beaches and stuff like that, there's a lot of personal cleaning after people, spending a lot of the time. So it's not lost, but it's investing of time and effort into trying to clean, keep these areas clean. So it is a huge problem. The relic vessels here, 2 abandoned vessels, that I mean by the relic vessels, that's a huge problem. Economic loss not only create problems to the habitat, but it can also create problems with navigation. And especially in areas where we have high transportation and big ports, things like that, they can become serious problems, right? You can see here this boat this net and tangle it around the prop and things like that. So you can imagine, but it is a major problem, not just for our states, for the United States, but as I said, this is a global problem. So those are the two types: economic loss and vessel damage and navigation hazard, which are also part of economic loss. And last but not least, like I was telling you, health is becoming, well, it's bringing, catching more people's attention. You know, what will happen to us in terms of this marine debris? How can it impact us? And it's just by the ingestion of plastic, but plastic also, and I'm saying marine debris is not just plastic, but one of the most common items, obviously, as you can see, and I was explaining already earlier, is that plastic is one of the major component for marine debris. And one problem that we have with plastics that you can find them through the whole water columns, but also plastic, because of its proper chemical properties, have a tendency sometimes to facilitate the gluing or attaching of some toxins that might be in the water, which can create more problems. So not just that plastic itself, but also some of the toxins that maybe we wouldn't consume if it were not getting attached to this marine debris and then ingested by animals. So as you can see here in this, by this infographic or this cartoon that I took from this study, you can kind of see this, how will, you know, marine debris will eventually come to animals that we might be consuming, and that how potentially cause health problem to us. As I said earlier, we still kind of try to understand what are the impacts of some of this marine debris based in passing on to humans. These are more studies, more shown examples of how the things can happen. These are some filter feeders, which microplastic aggregates, they basically filter the water and then they bioaccumulate it in the feces, so which is get consumed by the organisms. You have more of a direct maybe source of for us to get some of these particles or microplastics and potential pollutants by, you know, copepods. So this is zooplankton eating algae, then fish, smaller fish eating the zooplankton, and then higher fish eating those. Eventually, well, we don't eat, I don't think, maybe some cultures there, seals, but it's just an example how, you know, a top predator that we might be consuming might create problems to us eventually. And this is a recent article in NPR about how they're finding in some oysters that people are consuming some traces of plastic from down the road in British Columbia. So anyway, you can look more up for yourself, but there's so many case studies that are actually highlighting the potential impact of marine debris into human health and other organisms that we care for. So again, it's a plastic world. That's marine debris is mainly one of the main ingredients, or one of the main materials is plastics. You can see for this infographic from the Economic Forum. This is from 2014, but things haven't changed much. So it's not just all the damage that I was telling you about and all the impacts with the health, navigation, habitat, entanglement, etc. But it's also about production. As you can see from this infographic, in 2014, about 6% of all the oil, and this comes from natural gas, oil, fossil fuels, things like that, was used to produce plastic, mainly single-use plastic. So plastic that won't be used again, that can be recycled, or it's very hard to recycle. And if trends continue like it is today, by 2000, what was it, 2020? No, 2025, I think I cannot see the infographic with this bar here. Oh yeah, 2050, sorry. We'll have about 20%. Again, this is if the trends continue, right? We're using oils and fossil fuels and natural gas to create plastic. By 2050, 20% of all consumption will be to create plastic. Again, this is pretty high numbers, right? It's a little bit scary, at least to me. If you can see this too, this is a rough calculation of how much marine debris it is, and especially plastic. This is just about plastic. It is for ratio per, in terms of fish. You see one item per 5 fish. By 2050, it will overpass, so it will increase. So it's substantial difference. Oh, sorry, I went back. This is another example. This gentleman right here, this is an area in the world that they didn't have any problem with marine debris. They're not the source of it. They're just at the end of it where these currents bring all the stuff to pile ups, and they're dealing with that. So again, this is just it's a global problem. It's not just where it just generated. And it's because it's such a big issue that we obviously care about, but also the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration also has to understand that it's a global issue. It's not just about economy and health, but you know, it's the future for health of ecosystems. So they put a lot of effort and time and funding as well to help with this. So you can go, if you visit the NOAA site, which is, I put the link there below, you can see some of the priorities that they're dealing with in terms of marine debris, some of the funding opportunities that's not most likely for individuals in most places, but for groups, you know, academic institutions, NGOs, things like that. Even grassroots groups can apply for some of this funding and help create research and understanding what are the, you know, the sources, the causes, how can prevent, and solutions in relation to marine debris. We also have individual, and again, Anna, at the beginning of the presentation, she clarified that this is focused based on volunteer opportunities. So now this is part that I'm going to bring you into. How can you help at daily, you know, basically from your households as an individual, but also collectively, maybe with your community. So anybody can be part of the solution, right? Because we're all part of the problem as well. So one of the main things that I teach when I talked about marine debris is prevention. So it's not just about recycling, reuse, and reuse, which I'll talk to you in a bit, but it's also how we can prevent from this happening at the very beginning. So how can we change your behavior at home for these things not happen? The classical example is the release of the balloons. You must be familiar that most of those, well, all those balloons eventually will deflate, and most of them will end up in the ocean. So that's a huge problem, right? But the things that you can do at home, especially now, if you're in Florida, I don't know how many people are tuning in from Florida, but hurricane season is right here. So think about things around your household that if we have a hurricane storms, you might not have a time to pick up. Well, those eventually will come marine debris, right? You don't have to be by the coast to be part of the problem. You can be in the middle of the country and still be part of the problem. As like cigarette butts thrown out miles and miles away from the shoreline, carried on by stormwater. So just think about your daily actions. How can you help with these issues as well? But also there's other things obviously that you can do. Plastic, as you saw the infographic from the Economic Forum, is a substantial use of oil. That may be something that we shouldn't, a resource that we shouldn't use for that, but it's mainly to create single-use plastics. So say no to single-use plastics. There's many different examples that you can do at home, replace products that are better for the environment, like aluminum straw, things like that, plastic bags that you can reuse, et cetera, et cetera. So always the 4 R's, which is recycle, reuse, reduce, and what was the other one? Rethink, I believe, and reject. They keep adding R's and R's, but just you get the idea that there's a lot of stuff that we don't need and we have a tendency just to consume for no reason. And make sure that you dispose your trash in proper way and recycle in the proper way. We have a lot of information about recycling and what each number means. So if you need information about that as well, but you can't be, should have information about that. But recycling is extremely important. A lot of people think that they're recycling, they're not doing in the right way. So now you have to recycle. Remember, trash doesn't go away. It basically goes someplace else. So if we can help with the management of waste, that's a great step forward dealing with marine debris. Another thing that you can do is to read the labels. This is especially for microplastics. As you probably already know, a fruit right here will disintegrate, but plastic won't. They will become smaller, which become microscopic. That's what we call microplastics. And a lot of cosmetic products will use some type of plastic. In this case, this is a polyethylene. That's a name for plastic. And you can look at the ingredients of some of these products that they might have this plastic in it. So basically, it's not the container, it's what is inside. And basically, when you use these cosmetic products, after you take a shower or you sweat or whatever, that microplastic eventually will end up finding its way into the water treatment plant, which they cannot filter for microplastics, and eventually into the ocean. If you buy fruit, if you go to the supermarket, try to avoid over packaging of products. If you're going to buy water bottles, don't get the tiny little water bottles, or don't get water bottles that you cannot reuse. So there's a lot of things that you can do. This is a link for actually one of our sites that you can learn more about what can you do. And there's a pledge if you want to use that, this barcode, forgot what it's called. You can scan it and you can see things that you can do. There's a pledge that you can take and help you, give you ideas how can you be basically more free of plastic and marine debris. The best part, I think, of this, I'm almost at the very end, but become a citizen science. So this is become a volunteer. There's many different things that you can do. If you ever happen to be near me by the beach, you will see that my pocket and my Syntrax is always full of trash. So it becomes an addiction. I can't stop picking trash and litter from the beach. But you can do this as an individual every day, and not just at the beach. As I said, the marine debris will come from far, far, far away. Sometimes So wherever you live, you can have an impact. You can help address this issue of marine debris. So you can do it every single day, but you can also become a citizen science and be more organized. Like this group right here, we have a group from a school that wanted to do some services. So we put up a class, they learn about marine debris, and they also tracking. And I will go into that now. You can track your efforts, which help with collection of data. So there's an app, and this is the volunteer part that I can tell you. You can do as an individual, or you can have an organization. Let's say you belong to a group, a club or something. You can create an account that you can always do through time. So it doesn't have to be same individuals, but you can keep track of all this marine debris that is being collected around the globe. And why this is important, I'll go into that. But this is an app that was created in 2010. It's a very useful and very easy to navigate app. You can download it in any phone, smartphone, or a tablet, and it helps you because it helps you categorize the items that you collect and your efforts over time, and also identify sites they might need to be addressed. So it's basically creating a global database, which everybody's contributing to it and everybody can use. So the data is accessible for everybody, and it helps. I don't know if you remember the slide I showed about funding and NOAA priorities, but also understanding research about marine debris. And this helps because this data is basically telling people where kind of items are being found, where they're coming from, recognize some of these items that we might be able to address later on in terms of searching and things like that. So there's a lot of information and it's very easy to use. See, as you can see, I use my own, just to show, I use the pictures of the app. So it helps you recognize it and have to log in and all of that. But it's very helpful. And as I said, there's groups that have been doing this for years. So it's kind of like a competition now because you can see how many items have you collected at the time. So which is very impressive. So for a sense of proud and given to the community, this is a great way to do this. And you can also do this as a quick track. So you don't have to set up an account. You don't have to do this formally. You can also do it a more faster way, but the more information you can provide, the better, because as I said, it's an open data for anybody to use, and it's used for many scientists as well. So this is valid data that can be used for research. This is just an example of things that shows that where people have been collecting. As you can see, some statistics, about 5 million items has been collected since these things since this app has been put out there, which is great, but we do need more efforts. And obviously at some point, hopefully we can stop with the effort and be free of marine debris. But anyway, so this is more bringing it to home. You can see that you can zoom in into your own location and see what people have been doing. And maybe if you don't have a group that you can join or that you know of, you can zoom in your area, you can see what kind of groups are working in your area, and you might be able to join some of these groups. I'm sure if you look into the Florida map, you will see some of my Sea Grant coworkers probably already have their accounts there. You might identify some of the grassroots, some of the NGOs, some of the schools around your community. So you can use this as well to identify who's doing what. But also I like to use it to see where we haven't done much. So maybe there's an area in your state that it hasn't been addressed because there's a group. Well, that's a great opportunity to start efforts in that particular location. Again, this is another screenshot of the app and why it's important. It helps inspires, it helps educate, and it helps track, right? Tracks where all the stuff's coming from and what kind of items we find in. This is, I know this is not June, this is July, but I love World Ocean Days because it's an opportunity for me to talk about this and to try to do cleanups and things like that. But you don't have to wait to be Ocean Day. I think the Ocean Day should be every day. So there you go. So we need to, this last year theme was to revitalize collectively our oceans. So this is a great way to participate, enroll, and help the ocean with this problem, which we basically created. As I said, this is almost at the end, but we have a quick poll that we would love for you to take. This is going to take a few seconds. This help us assess the program and make it better, obviously, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you have 30 seconds, please fill out the poll. You should see it on your screen by now. Thank you. I see somebody participated. We're going to leave it open for a couple more seconds. Thank you again for participating. I'm gonna look at the chat. Oh. That's my email as well. If you have any comments, thank you, Laura, for putting all these links. If you want to follow up with me by email, you can do so as well. There's my email address. I think everybody participated by now, Anna.
Perfect. Thank you. Armando, thank you so much. That was really interesting. And thank you all for listening. It is just before 1 o'clock. So if you have to go, not to worry. We are going to stay online to chat a little longer with Armando. And I forgot in the beginning to introduce our other esteemed colleague, Dr. Laura Tu, who is the Florida Sea Grant agent up in the Panhandle and Okaloosa counties. She will also be available to ask questions and help answer questions about marine debris and beyond. Laura, can you tell if we have anything coming into the chat yet?
Just a lot of thank yous is what I'm saying. I think everybody appreciated the update. I do have a question though. I know that I haven't used that tracker that you just mentioned, but we have used what's the other, there is another tracker out there. And we had a little bit difficulty because we don't always get a good signal when we're down at the beach. And so it's been a little bit hit and miss sometimes up here in the Panhandle with our tracking ability.
So that's a great question, a great comment. So the app started by, so it was created by, I don't know if you remember the slide, but it's created by 2 scientists or 2 researchers, and then a lot of institutions adopted it. So basically the data was going to the same place, but they had different umbrellas. I think now they made the tracker just one. So if you have the old one, maybe see if you can update it and they'll see what it does. But the data eventually was going to the same place. But so if you like it, if it's working and you like your old app, I think it's still useful. If not, try to use a new one. But I think that was the glitch, that they had different, so it's the same app, but being hosted by different people. And then in terms of the collection, if you don't have Wi-Fi, I think you can work offline, but you can also print some sheets of paper and do it at the site, and then you can upload it later. I mean, I know it's more work, but it's helpful, and you don't have to do that all the time. So don't feel like, oh, I don't have time to do track every item, so I won't do a cleanup. So sometimes, as I say, sometimes I'm with my family at the beach and I pick up half a pound of trash, and sometimes I don't have time to record it. But yeah, we want you to. But yeah, just play with the app and see what it does. I think you can work offline and then submit it. So you can basically add to it and then send it. But I have to check, so I'll let you know if that's the case.
No, I pinged off the link, so I'm going to look after the thing. But we did have another question come in. What are some best practices for collecting trash?
That's a great question. And
yeah,
we do a lot of marine debris, and especially people want to do a lot of this collection of trash in natural settings. So like, parks and reserves, things like that, which is great. But you can do this, a parking lot around your house and your neighborhood. But if you happen to be in a natural area, so just be mindful of habitat. So as, for example, we do a lot of cleanups at the beach and there's a lot of sand dunes, and we don't want people going in sand dunes because the vegetation is very fragile, very sturdy. That's another topic, but that's a very sturdy, good vegetation, but it can take years if it gets damaged to recover. And there's a lot of shorebird nesting. So just be mindful of the type of habitat you're in it. And also when you're doing either in coastal or on the water cleanups, especially on the water cleanups, we do a lot of those. Sometimes marine debris already being attacked, being colonized, but organisms like a bunch of shells, bivalves, snails, things like that. So sometimes it might be better just to leave it there if it's already covered by wildlife, unfortunately, than bring it up. So just that's another one. So knowing what items should be you picking or not. And also another very good practice is to be able to take the time, not only to classify it if you can, but also to separate it, right? To the recycles versus the non-recyclable, and then understand really what recycle means, because just the sign of recycle doesn't mean it's recycled sometimes. And there's people's recycled. So understanding even your own county, what kind of products they take, then you will know how to classify it. So I think that'll be, just very general, kind of my best advice.
I have another suggestion that kind of falls under best practices, but whenever we do our beach cleanups here, we go to our county TDC, Tourist Development Center, and they always give us gifts, county-themed gifts that we use for the most unusual object and the most cigarette butts collected. So if you are putting together a group, you might want to hit up your TDC or other county group. They might be able to offer some prizes for you.
Yes, that's a great idea. And we actually had I created a scavenger hunt
Yeah.
for this youth group. So there's a lot of things that you can do in creative, and it's weird the stuff that you will find. So it can be kind of interesting, some of those challenges. But yeah, that's a great idea as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Armando, I have a question for you.
Sure.
There's no doubt that the need for beach cleanups and shoreline cleanups, there's always going to be that need because unfortunately our environment just has so much debris. But in addition to that, what are some things that can be done to try and minimize the amount of trash? It's not exactly having to do with citizen science, but under the same theme, what are other things that can be done? Where should other efforts maybe be focused to try and not have stuff be there in the first place, if that makes sense?
Yes, and that's again a really good question, comment, and we can go on and on and on forever. But I think just to step back and think a little bit, and that's from every level and any kind of place you are. Let's say you're in school, look at your cafeteria, look kind of products. Try to talk to the people that are actually making decisions, and that's something that's some communities have been doing. If you're part of a club, what kind of products they have, what kind of products they give away. If you belong in an industry, I do a lot of marine debris classes with industries that they give a lot of giveaways. So they're rethinking what kind of giveaways are given when they have this open house kind of thing, just so it's not just stuff that people just grab and then they don't need. So be more mindful of stuff that you buy, that you give, and that you create. Again, this is a very brief generic, but I think start with us, behavior, and then see what kind of improvements you can do at your work, at your home, and your place.
Perfect.
But feel free to add, Anna, if you have ideas. Obviously, I know you have full ideas and you deal with this as well.
I had a feeling that's what you were going to suggest, and I'll just add that maybe talking to people about that is different depending on who you're speaking with. And we preach a lot of things and don't practice, so it's important to try and apply those behavior changes within yourself and your own family, and trying to change habits and carry those shopping bags. Everybody has reusable shopping bags, and I always tease my neighbor because she has a million bags, but she comes home from the grocery store every time with 12 Publix plastic bags, and I'm going, why? And she goes, oh, I have the reusable bags, but they're in the car.
Yeah.
So it's doable. It's little by little. It just requires a little bit of commitment and thinking and trying to change what we're used to.
Yes, and when I forget my plastic bags, my reusable bags, I actually don't. I put everything in the cart, and then I use multiple full trips from the car to the house. But yeah, I get all my steps in. So so there's ways. But yeah, there's a lot of things you can do, and especially have conversation with your kids. Look at the kind of products. I don't know if well, I have small kids, but you have the little straw with the plastic straw, put in a plastic container for one single use. I mean, why? So it's convenient, but it's not convenient in the long term. So just have the conversation with the little kids as well, so they understand, and they also start learning what products are better and what products are not.
As we shamelessly plug our reusable water bottles.
Right.
Perfect.
Anyway, I saw that, yeah, if you like the scavenger hunt, just email me. I'm happy to share that with you. And there's all the resources. I think we provided many links, but the plasticaware.org, that's a great site. And yeah, and if you have any more questions, I'm not going yet, but yeah, please feel free to reach out. Almost any county now around the coastline in Florida has a Sea Grant agent, I believe. If not, so you feel free to reach out to your local Sea Grant agent. If you want to organize a cleanup and they don't know how to, some of them might advise you to go to certain people. Some people might be able to help you directly, but yeah, we have resources for you. So don't hesitate. If you want to make change, we're happy to help you make that change.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, I'll give it another minute, but I do want to mention that our next edition of Bite Size Science will be on Thursday, August 4th at 12:30 p.m. And that will feature reporting dolphin fishing interactions. And I think Laura will put the registration link in the chat. So we hope to see you all back here in about 4 weeks for that one. And I'm having a hard time finding my mouse. Have any other questions popped in?
Just a thank you and a note, but yeah, thank you for the nice, kind words. Glad you could come.
Well, thank you all very much. We look forward to seeing you in another month. Happy July.
Bye. Thank you.